Okay, welcome everybody back to the course 573, which is project management and performance. This is chapter 2 now, project program and portfolio selection. So as I noted before, well, first we'll jump in here. The learning objectives, feel free to pause here, review it yourself. And as I mentioned last week, alignment is critical. Your project should align up through a program, up through the portfolio management, and to corporate strategy. If your project doesn't align, you're already in a bad path and on a direction towards failure. So make sure you are aligned with the corporate strategic objective, right? An organization's overall business strategy should guide why your project was selected. Remember, you're filling a gap between where the company's at now and where they want to be. And again, so we tie into what went wrong or how did we get here, right? And how can think of this question, what went wrong, in terms of how can I manage that in a project? Well, I can do it by collecting lessons learned and sharing them. I can do it by looking at historical records of other projects that were similar, even though mine is unique. And I could incorporate the expertise of others, right? Just a couple of ways. But now, how would you apply that in a project level or program level above that? Well, in a program level, you might say, you know what? Once a week, I'm going to have my project managers that work for me, the program manager, I'm going to have them get together and share their lessons learned together, right? So that we all benefit from it, etc. And up to the portfolio level, they should have the resources, the training, the tools, the templates to help solve some of your problems along the way. So strategic planning is very important. That's something a company is doing at the C-suite level, the CEO. That's what I mean by the C-suite, the CIO, the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, the CISO, right? Any of the C's. That's the C-suite. And they are building a strategic plan for your company that's 3 to 5 years out. And it's your project that is going to help it. Once Apple produced the iPhone, you can bet Samsung and others had projects because corporately at the strategic level, they said, got it. We're going to go, iPhone is wildly popular. We're going to make our own version with our own app store, right? And that's how that started. You were fulfilling a strategic gap. Okay. Here's an example of a children's hospital. It is laid out in the book, so I'd suggest reading it there. You could pause here. But remember, it's important that you understand as you build your charter, right, that you understand what the company's mission, vision, and goals are so that you can build that into your charter, which is going to then lead to your project plan. One great way to do this is to do a SWOT analysis. And that is a strategic tool used to identify SWOT, or strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This is going to help you identify at a strategic level potential pitfalls for your project, potential opportunities for your project, threats to your project, and strengths along the way, which you'd want to maximize. Now, here is a sample SWOT analysis. You'll see across the top, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And they broke it down into these 4 categories on the left. You don't have to do this. This is a unique, clever approach. But they said from stewardship to customers to process and people, they broke all of those down into strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and built that into the project along the way. One way you can build a SWOT is to do a mind map. A mind map says, hey, I frankly have no idea where to go from here. And I've lived this. And so what I did was I was given an idea and told to implement it across 144,000 people around the globe. I had no idea what to do. So I put the idea in the middle. just like right here. And my project was the a virtual inspection system, or implement a new inspection system. Okay, and from there I said, well, I need to talk to headquarters, and I need to talk to the wings themselves, the bases around the world, and I need to have policy, and I need to talk to the Pentagon. And from there I said, well, if I'm going to talk to the Pentagon, I'm going to need to talk to this office, this office, this office, etc. Right? The same with this. This is a mind map of a SWOT analysis. I put the SWOT for my project name or mission there, and I can go weaknesses. What weaknesses do I see? And you're just brainstorming with your team, with other stakeholders, maybe a VP, maybe a group VP, and that's how you are filling in these branches. But you start in the center and work your way out by asking why, what next, what if, who, what, where, when, why, and how. Okay, here's some video highlights that you could Google or YouTube and enjoy yourself. I would look up anything on mind map. There's some great stuff out there on YouTube. Now, traditional projects, this is what we call waterfall or predictive, and agile projects have various different approaches to project planning along the way. Most organizations are going to follow a traditional approach. A lot of the work I do is cybersecurity infrastructure, and I love the traditional waterfall or predictive approach. I'm trying to minimize risk that my cybersecurity tool that I'm implementing will break the business, will stop the business in some way, right? So I'm managing risk in the implementation, as opposed to agile, which is change driven, and it's managing change, as I mentioned. Which will help it make a more timely decision along the way. So traditional project planning is often done on an annual basis. So I usually tie a traditional project to the capital budget, right? So you're given a budget to implement antivirus software across the whole company, and I'm given $280,000 to do it, and 12 months to do it in. And that would be a good example of a traditional project. And it starts at the top. The C-suite is going to determine the project need. They're going to give you a budget generally, and you're going to work with your sponsor to get it done and build your team, okay? And so the pyramid for traditional projects starts at the strategic level, that C-suite that says, here's what I need. They'll do a business analysis, so some directors and departments will analyze, is there profit? What's the return on investment? What's the payback period, right? That's going on in business analysis. As a project manager, I'm going to ask for all of this information when I start my project planning, right? Now, the portfolio management function will probably assign me the project manager here, and I'm going to begin to gather resources like people to help me manage the project along the way. Agile is a little bit different. In contrast to the traditional top-down, Agile planning is much more flexible. In fact, Agile will use a term called the team is frankly self-forming. You probably read about it in the manifesto last week. The team self-forms, right? And it's only going to be about 8 or so people who should ideally work face-to-face with each other in close alliance. They need to get to know each other and each other's strengths and weaknesses and other things. This is the agile approach, self-forming. We're not really worried about the budget for the project, right? We're worried about value that we can deliver fast for the client, okay? So whether it's agile or predictive waterfall project management, whether it's change-driven or risk-driven, either way, it's an iterative approach because both are projects. Both are unique and temporary. Unique in its deliverable and temporary in its duration. So both are going to be iterative. You're going to get the strategy, maybe the high-level objectives. You're going to build your project plan. You're going to produce products that have value, get feedback. If the product isn't working quite right yet, you're going to accept the benefits, but continue this loop. It's iterative in nature. Every project is, whether it's agile or traditional. Agile likes to talk in terms of a product roadmap. This is an important artifact in agile planning, and it's really a tool to show that a high visual summary of the vision down to the product over time. It's your roadmap. It's basically waterfall or predictive project management would call it your milestones is the term they would use. Okay. So in Agile, this would be a multiple product roadmap, just a sample for you. More about this in the book. And a traditional project is going to largely use a Gantt chart, right? But a product roadmap would be an agile approach. So a Gantt chart is a standardized format for displaying schedule information and project activities, especially dependencies among them, right? And a product roadmap is created to focus on the strategy. Remember, in Agile, you're not really sure what your deliverables looking like. That's why it's change driven. So you're going to focus on the strategy, and you can use Gantt charts as well. But largely, the roadmap is used in one, milestones in the other, and Gantt could be used in either. Now, product management versus program management. Well, to be honest, product management is about how long that product will last in its life. So, for example, if my project is to take Tide and make Tide with bleach, right? That's a project. And after a year, I have developed a Tide with bleach that makes all the stakeholders satisfaction, their needs, and I launch it. Now it becomes a product, and it will remain product management until someday when they stop making Tide with bleach, right? And the program can manage that, but a program is going to be limited in duration, right? A program has multiple projects, and remember, they're time bound. A product goes on forever till you detool it in the end. Here's some more best practices for you if you want to pause and review it, worthwhile for you to do. There are lots of ways to select a project, but you want to always make sure that your project is going to deliver at the C-suite a company's competitive advantage, which requires then a competitive strategy, right? There are ways to assess the business analysis, as we saw on the triangle a few slides ago. And one way would be to assess net present value. Or you could also assess return on investment. You could assess payback period. You could use a weighted scoring model because maybe it's dollars made, but it's also reputation and it's quality, whatever is important to you. And you could weight those in your decision to select a project. A lot of very famous, this was a Harvard effort called Balanced Scorecard, very popular approach, okay? And so it's important to focus on the competitive strategy and what the C-suite really needs as you develop your project, including the financial projections, which I've already mentioned, net present value, return on investment, and payback period. More on those in your book. And we'll come back in part 2 and address the rest together.